Andy spent his entire childhood trying not to lose Woody. But the strange part is, Woody spent his entire life terrified that Andy would lose him instead. And across 4 movies, that fear slowly shaped him into one of the most human characters Pixar ever created. Because this was never really the story of a toy. It was the story of someone learning how to be left behind.
I'm lost. Oh, I'm a lost toy.
There was a time when Woody believed his world would never change. Before the losses, before the choices that would define him, he was simply Andy's favorite toy. And to Woody, that meant everything. He wasn't just another toy in the room. He was the leader, the one others listened to, the one Andy slept beside, the one with Andy's name written on his boot. Being loved wasn't something Woody enjoyed. It was how he understood his value. And that matters because it explains almost every decision he makes afterward. At first, Woody seems confident, even dependable. He runs the room, keeps everyone calm, looks out for the other toys. He feels like a natural hero. But Pixar quietly plants something more complicated underneath that. Woody likes being needed a little too much. He likes control. He likes his place. And deep down, he depends on it. Because if Andy's favorite is who he is, what happens if he stops being that? Then Buzz arrives. Buzz Lightyear doesn't just disrupt the room, he disrupts Woody. And that's what makes this rivalry so much better than a normal jealousy story. Buzz threatens Woody's identity. Almost overnight, everything shifts. Andy plays with Buzz. The other toys admire Buzz. Even the room itself starts changing, and Woody for the first time feels replaceable. That fear pushes him into mistakes, real ones. He becomes petty, defensive, even selfish. And honestly, that's what makes him believable. Pixar doesn't introduce Woody as a perfect hero. They let him fail first, because his story begins not with courage, but insecurity. And that makes the growth feel earned.
Stupid little cardboard spaceship and taking away everything that was important to
Pizza
me.
Planet is where that growth begins. Because stranded with the toy he resents, Woody has to confront something much bigger than Buzz. Who is he if he isn't number one? That question follows him through the whole franchise. It starts here. Inside Sid's house, something shifts, not through some grand speech, but through empathy. Woody sees Buzz fall apart, and in helping Buzz rediscover purpose, he starts changing too. When he finally admits Buzz is a cool toy,
I mean, what chance does a toy like me have against a Buzz Lightyear action figure? Why would Andy ever want to play with me when he's got you?
that isn't just a funny beat. That's surrender. That's growth. It's the first time Woody chooses friendship over possession. And once he makes that choice, he never fully goes back. Even the finale reflects it. The toy who once tried to get rid of Buzz ends up risking everything beside him. And together, they fly. That image works as more than spectacle. It says something about Woody. He rises only after he stops clinging. By the end of the film, his fear of abandonment isn't gone. That wound stays. Future films will prove that. But he has learned something crucial. Love isn't something you protect by holding tighter. It grows when you share it. And for Woody, that may be the first real step toward becoming more than Andy's favorite toy. It's the beginning of a life. If the first film is about jealousy, Toy Story 2 is about something much deeper. Fear, not of being replaced this time, but of being left behind. And that difference matters, because Woody's crisis here isn't caused by Buzz or another rival. It comes from time. A torn arm seems like a small thing, but to Woody, it feels like a warning.
What happened?
Woody's been shelved.
For the first time, he sees himself as something breakable, something aging, something a child might outgrow. And suddenly, the question underneath all his fears starts surfacing. What happens when Andy doesn't need me anymore? That anxiety drives the whole film. Because Woody isn't just kidnapped into a bigger adventure. He's pulled into a vision of his possible future. And that future arrives through Jessie. Jessie changes everything, because through her story, abandonment stops being a fear and becomes something Woody can actually imagine. A child can love you completely and still move on. That's devastating, and it forces Woody to confront a choice he's never had before. Go back to Andy, knowing the loss is inevitable, or escape that pain entirely. Be preserved forever, untouched, remembered. It almost sounds noble. But Buzz sees what Woody is missing.
This is my only chance.
To do what, Woody? Watch kids from behind glass and never be loved again?
A toy behind glass may last forever, but it can't be loved. And that idea reshapes Woody. For most of his life, he treated permanence as security. Now he begins to understand that meaning comes from being loved, even if that love has an ending. That's a huge shift, because Woody stops trying to outrun loss and starts accepting it. That's maturity. And it's why his decision to return to Andy matters so much. He doesn't go back because it's safe. He goes back because it's real, because finite love is still worth choosing, maybe even more so. And there's another beautiful layer here. He doesn't just save himself. He brings Jesse and Bullseye home. That says a lot about how much he's grown. The Woody from the first film was protecting his place. This Woody creates space for others. That's evolution. By the end, Woody hasn't conquered his fear of being left behind, but he's made peace with something just as important. Love is fragile, and that fragility is what makes it matter. That lesson will carry into the hardest goodbye of his life, because in the next chapter, the thing he has spent 2 films preparing for finally arrives. Andy grows up. By the time Toy Story 3 begins, the future Woody feared is no longer hypothetical. It's here. Andy is leaving. And what I love about this film is that it doesn't treat that as sudden tragedy. It feels like something quietly approaching for years. The room is emptier. Most of the toys are gone. Childhood is fading, and Woody knows it. That's why he clings so hard to the attic plan. Not because it's ideal, but because as long as Andy keeps them, some part of their old life survives. For Woody, that means everything. He still believes loyalty means staying, holding on, waiting. But the film slowly challenges that belief, especially through Sunnyside. Because Sunnyside isn't just another obstacle. It's a test, a false promise, a place where being needed forever turns out to be its own kind of prison. And Lots of Hug and Bear works so well because he feels like a warning. He's what pain looks like when it curdles. He was abandoned too. But where Woody keeps choosing trust, Lotso chose bitterness. That contrast says a lot, especially about how far Woody has come. And then, the incinerator. I think this is the emotional center of the whole franchise, not because it's dark, but because it reveals who Woody has become. Years ago, he feared losing his place. Now, facing death, he reaches for his friends. No speeches, no heroics, just a hand held in the fire. And somehow, that says everything. Because Woody no longer measures survival in being chosen. He finds meaning in who he chooses to stand beside. That's profound growth, and it leads to his hardest decision. Not escaping Sunnyside, not surviving the dump, giving Andy permission to move on. That's what the Bonnie ending really is. It isn't just Andy passing on his toys, it's Woody accepting that love can continue without possession, without holding on. That may be the biggest lesson of his life, because for 3 films, Woody feared Andy leaving him. But when the moment finally comes, Woody lets Andy go. That's not loss, that's love. And honestly, for most stories, this would be the perfect ending. It feels complete. But Pixar had one more question left. If Woody has learned how to live for a child, what happens when he learns to live for himself? That question is what makes Toy Story 4 so interesting. Because instead of repeating old themes, it asks something new. What does purpose look like after the role you built your life around begins to fade? Bonnie loves her toys, but she doesn't need Woody the way Andy did. And Woody feels that, not as jealousy, not as betrayal, more like uncertainty. He doesn't know where he fits anymore. And that may be a harder crisis than all the others, because this one has no villain, only identity. That's why Forky matters. Woody throws himself into protecting Forky because protecting others has always been how he understands himself. But underneath that, he's trying to hold on to purpose, trying to prove he still has one.
You have to be there for Bonnie. That is your job.
Well, what's your job?
Well, right now, it's to make sure you do yours.
Then Bo Peep re-enters his life, and she changes the question entirely. Because Bo represents something Woody never really considered. A meaningful life outside ownership, freedom, choice, self-direction. For Woody, that's almost revolutionary. He has spent decades believing devotion is identity. Bo suggests identity can be larger than duty.
Follow me.
And suddenly, the story stops being about rescue. It becomes about reinvention. Even Gabby Gabby feeds into that. Another toy searching for purpose. Another mirror. And when Woody gives away his voice box, that moment says more than people realize. In the first film, he fought to protect his importance. Now he gives part of himself away so someone else can be loved. That says everything about who he has become. Then comes the final choice, stay with Bonnie or stay with Bo. And what makes it powerful is that neither option is wrong. This isn't about duty versus selfishness. It's about growth. Buzz understands that before Woody does. You know Bonnie will be okay. That isn't just reassurance, it's permission. And Woody finally allows himself to imagine a life he chooses, not one assigned to him. That completes something. Because Woody's journey began with fear of losing his child. It ends with discovering he can be more than a child's toy. He can define his own purpose. That's huge. And honestly, it may be the boldest thing Pixar ever did with him. Because instead of ending Woody's story with sacrifice, they end it with self-discovery. That's rare and strangely beautiful.
Does this mean Woody's a lost toy?
He's not lost. Not anymore.
He isn't becoming a lost toy. He's becoming found in a different way. And maybe that's the perfect ending after all. Because over 4 films, we didn't just watch Woody change. We watched him grow up.
To infinity and beyond.
Woody didn't just have one of Pixar's greatest character arcs. He may have one of the greatest arcs in film. Across 4 movies, we watched jealousy become friendship, fear become acceptance, love become letting go, and eventually, letting go become freedom. That's not just a toy story, that's a life story. And maybe that's why Woody still resonates, because somewhere in his fears, his loyalty, and his struggle to move forward, we see ourselves.
Hey, who's got my hat?
Look, I'm Woody. Howdy, howdy, howdy.
And if you want this to become a series, let me know which character I should cover next. Buzz? Jesse? Lotso? Maybe even Andy himself. Because honestly, Toy Story is full of characters that deserve their own story. And if you enjoyed this one, the channel already has a lot more videos diving into the world of Toy Story.